Alrighty then. As you have seen in some previous clips or videos, we installed a freshwater all-in-one tank underneath the truck. So here's just a better view of this. Has a built-in water pump and everything. It's already pre-wired, got a hose connection on it, everything like that. This pump flows 1.2 gallons per minute at 60 psi. But anyways, as you also know, if you've seen any of the before stuff, that freshwater tank sits right here underneath the truck. Now, one problem that we're going to have with that, though, is it is outside and exposed. And we go a little bit beyond the norm of people, as we do not flee south during the winter. We have a tendency to drive north during the winter time. And we are going to be leaving here pretty soon for Thanksgiving week and headed to Colorado, where I suspect we will see some pretty darn cold freezing temperatures and probably some snow and such forth. So I did have to come up with some provisions for the water tank to keep it heated. So we turned to Amazonian stuff, and I bought these tank heater pads. I have 3 of them. They are 12-inch by 18-inch. They have a built-in thermostatic control valve. It will turn on at 45 degrees Fahrenheit plus or minus 5 degrees. It will automatically turn off at 68 degrees Fahrenheit plus or minus 5 degrees. At 13.5 volts DC, they claim that they will draw, I will have to look on the literature again to see how much power consumption it claims that they draw. Anyways, we have 3 of these pads. They are 12-inch by 18-inch. We're going to put 2 of them on the water tank, and the 3rd pad is actually going to be going in the battery box for the lithium batteries. So it comes with the 3 pads. It comes with this control switch, which it does say fresh, gray, and waste, which for us, we will cut some new stickers, and it will say freshwater tank 1, freshwater tank 2, and lithium battery box. It comes with a host of terminals and some quick connect shrink on ends. So the way the switch is wired up is the center post is the common. So we will have our hot wire coming from the battery bank, and we can just jump across it. And then our ground right here is our common. We can do that also. We'll jump across that for our commons, and then each individual lead will go out to each individual heater pad. So what we're going to do with that situation is we just got some 4-conductor wire here, and I've started me a little ledger here for switch 1, switch 2, switch 3. We'll just pick out a color that can go to each pad. So we'll have pad number 1, pad number 2, pad number 3, and then our ground return signal wire can go out and can conjunction between all 3 of those. To help carry the load of the return wire, since we are a negative grounded system, we can simply take those individual pads and we will tie them together, and we can ground them to the body of the truck, the frame, anywhere. And then we'll also tie this wire into it, so we'll have a real good signal loop. That'll keep anything from getting overloaded and excessively hot. We can fuse this also. Our main power wire that comes into this, we will stick a fuse in there. It says it's 20 amps maximum. Let me find the literature right quick for these, and I'll tell you how much current draw they supposedly advertise these things taking. Supposedly power consumption is 65 watts. That would be all 3 pads being on. And again, there's the specifications for it. Again, I'm not too worried about the power consumption. We have 1,240 amp hours of lithium. We are not going to draw the lithium batteries down with these tank pads. So let me grab some other stuff right quick, and I'll show you what we're going to do. So what we're going to do with the tank is, like I say, we're going to get the surfaces cleaned up with some mineral spirits so that it'll stick really well. These are self-adhesive. You simply peel the backing off. They're flexible, so it will mold around where the tank goes. And then we are going to actually wrap the tank in this insulating mat right here. Now, one thing that we need to be very, very careful of is these are obviously electrically charged to heat them. we want to be sure, just in case one of those fails, we would not want this whole 1240 amp hours of lithium to be able to go to ground through one of these heating pads. So the material that we wrap this tank in is actually conductive. And we just checked that with the meter here. We got it set on continuity. We'll just take our 2 leads and stick them to the pad. There you go. This is actually slightly conductive. So we're going to be sure that wherever our wire passes through from this to the outside, that we insulate that very well so that we don't get any chafing or anything and rub through onto this. And again, we will have a 20 amp fuse on it, so it would pop it just like that. But with this being conductive and being wrapped around those pads, again, this also will help disperse some of the heat around the tank somewhat through this material. So anyway, that's the plan. We're going to get it cleaned up, start getting the pads stuck on, and then we'll cut this up and wrap it around the tank. And it comes with some rolls of some backing material to help stick them down around the edges. But just ensure that we don't have any peeling, we're going to turn to the good old-fashioned peel your skin and everything else off before it comes loose Gorilla Tape, and we will tape those edges down really well. And so what we end up with is a very big insulated football, so to speak. And so here's our leads for pad number 1. Here's our leads for the second pad. Got the pump secured back on there. The pump was originally screwed to the tank, but of course with this having wires running in it, we didn't want to put screws back through it in case we was to tear one of those. So we've got both ends wrapped in insulation. And then down here, we just simply cut a little access hole for the drain on there. And then we just secured our hose back down so it doesn't flop around and everything like that. So we'll get the tank put back underneath the truck, and then we'll get our cabling hooked up to our switch. We're gonna mount the switch inside the truck over there with the other where our battery monitoring switch is. And then we have a remote switch that's also gonna be going in for our 3000 watt inverter. So all that stuff's gonna be mounted in the same panel right there. So we'll get the cabling all hooked up to our switch panel. Somewhere here, right here. Again, we'll have heating pad 1, heating pad 2, heating pad 3, 2 for the water tank, one for the battery compartment, and then we'll have our ground that we'll share between all of them. So, and then of course our hot wire that we can just parallel our hot wire across all 3 switches also. So there we go, 1 insulated water tank. The little rocker switches that came with the switch panel on the tank heater pads are kind of cheap and cheesy, obviously, and I ended up breaking off one of the little ears on one of the switches, trying to get the little push tabs on there. So I just went to O'Reilly's and bought these. These are much heavier. These are actually rated for 25 amps, but they're just built a lot better. So I'm just going to take our same existing switch plate. These buttons are a lot bigger around, so I just stepped the holes out to where they will fit in there, kind of. And then the switches have these little ears that stick out that actually will clip over there. So anyway, I'm just going to take a diamond file here and I'm just going to cut a little notch in there for the ears to go into, and then we will have a whole new switch cover. And then I'm actually going to switch the cover around. Get this thing out of here, because this one was labeled, sorry, as fresh, gray, and waste. So we're just going to flip it over and we'll go from this side. And then, like I say, we'll just relabel them as tank, as heater 1, heater 2, and then battery. So anyway, it's going to work out anyways a little bit better. You can see how much bigger around the switches are. And again, these new switches are rated to take 25 amps load, which we're fused at 20 amp anyways. But anyway, so there's where we're at. There we go, fits right in there just perfect. Alright, so the only other thing we need to do, since this is a different switch, is just verify and make sure we get the hot wire on the right post, the load on the right post, and the ground on the correct post. So we're just going to return to the meter again. We got it set on continuity here. And we'll just verify the position of which terminal does what. So we'll just put our clips on there, flip the switch, see what the meter says. So there we go. So it looks like our end post right here is going to be our hot wire. This is going to be where our load goes. That's our common connection between the two of these here. And then of course the ground is so that the switch will illuminate when you turn it on. One of the most powerful tools you can have in your arsenal right there, a good DVOM. And like I say, I do recommend these. This is a little Fluke clamp-on amp meter. It works great. You can actually buy this at Lowe's. It is relatively inexpensive for a name brand, really good, high quality meter. All right, so, sorry, our Renogy battery monitor. Here's our tank heater controllers. Tank heaters, water tank, batteries. And then of course this is our remote turn on switch for our 3000 watt inverter. So anyway, that's pretty cool. Now we don't have to dig around in there, but anyway, we run everything in here through the inverter, so the TV and everything. Our sound bar is also hooked up through the inverter. Microwave, which we're actually moving from this counter right here. Microwave is going to be mounted over here. We have this little shelf space right here. It's not really good for much of nothing, and the microwave fits perfectly fine right there. So we just built this aluminum piece of trim. It's going to get mounted right there. And then we'll just mount the inverter microwave right up here. You can run the power cable right back inside here. And this is where we get our, there's a plug back here, 120 volt plug that is also wired into the inverter. And then our potty. This is just the bathroom side. So here's ours. There's for our little traveling kitty, baby Chloe. We take her with us also. But that's kind of where we're at now. A big giant mess to start getting all cleaned up. And then we'll get this cable ran out the bottom and tied into all the individuals. So we have heating pad 1 again, heating pad 2, heating pad 3, and then of course our common ground. So I'm going to clip all these wires off, and then we'll get it poked down through the floor and ran out to the back. All right, so we got all the pads mounted, 2 on the water tank. The one in the battery box, we literally just slid down between the 2 batteries. I'll get in there and show you here. In fact, let's just hop out there and I'll show you. I had to be real careful about that one because, again, the material that the pad is coated with is conductive. And I mean, it's in there with a nuclear powered lithium battery. It rained really bad the other day, so I just got this towel laying in here on top of the batteries to absorb the moisture out of them. So like I said, we just lit this one, folded in half, and we slid it down between the 2 batteries. And remember, they are thermostatically controlled anyways, but the material that is on them is conductive, so I couldn't just lay it across the top of the batteries. Now it is nowhere near cold enough outside today for the thermostatic control valve to turn the panels on, but we can still go ahead and turn them all on. It's getting down in the 50s here at night now. Finally, our 3 days of winter is almost here. So anyway, we're just going to flip them all on. And obviously the heating pads themselves are not on because they are going to draw more than 1 amp. Because like even when we turn the inverter on to charge the capacitors in the inverter, and we're just going to leave them off for right now. So the only other thing we have to add to here eventually is we're getting another battery monitor system. That battery monitoring system is going to go in line with the connection that runs between the chassis batteries and our lithium batteries. And that way it'll give us a better understanding of how much is going to maintain the chassis batteries and how much is actually coming from those to the lithiums. I do have a switch underneath there where I can combine the two banks together. Now this truck does have a lot of static draw on it. If we let it sit here for more than about 3 or 4 days, the batteries do get low. But of course, since we've added the lithium in there and I just leave them toggled together right now, you can see we're drawing about 1/4 amp. But anyway, the truck's been sitting here now almost a month, and it fires right up. So, but anyway, that's it. That's our heating system, and like I say, we will label these. I know that this is on the tank. This is on the water tank. This third one right here is the one that went to the battery box. So we'll just label these so we'll know which one is which. Anyway, time to move on to getting this shelf completed.